In this video, I'll show you January 5th, 2020, the owner of Living Soul's YouTube channel, who we will refer to as Mr. Traveler, was pulled over by two officers from the Phoenix Police Department. Once Mr. Traveler stopped his vehicle, the officers exited, cruiser, and approached his vehicle from both sides.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, man?
Back window roll down?
No, I'm good. I can roll. I can keep it like this.
Is there anything back there?
No.
Are there any people back there? Okay.
I didn't give you permission to do that, man.
Alrighty, sir. So, do you have any idea why I pulled you over? Okay, I'm Officer Goldsman with Phoenix Police Department.
Okay, but let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Is there a reason why you opened my door like that?
Yes. For my safety, I can't see back there.
Okay, but you had to get my permission to do that.
No, sir.
Do you have a warrant to do that?
No, sir. I did not go into your vehicle. I just looked inside.
Okay, we'll figure. We'll settle that later. But
do you have your driver's license with you?
No, I do not have a license.
You don't have a driver's license?
I turned it back in. I don't need a license. This is not a commercial vehicle.
This is not a commercial vehicle?
No, it's not, and I'm not operating in the commercial capacity.
Is it registered in the state of Arizona or anywhere else?
As a matter of fact, I turned that back in as well. I'm gonna have my girlfriend go in my glove compartment. Got some paperwork to show you. Go ahead.
Okay.
And why did you pull me over?
You don't have a valid registration, sir.
Okay, and we already established that it's not required that I'm not operating as a commercial vehicle, correct?
In the state of Arizona, you have to have a valid registration to have a vehicle on the roadway. You also have to provide me with identification.
I don't have to, unless I committed a crime.
In the state of Arizona, you do. If I pull you over for a traffic infraction, you do have to.
And what's the traffic infraction?
You have no valid registration.
Okay. Did I commit a crime?
That's not a crime. It's a civil matter.
Okay. So if I don't commit a crime, I'm not required. Hold on.
You are committing a crime now.
What crime is that?
Not providing me with a ID or driver's license.
The officer argues that Mr. Traveler is required to show his driver's license because he was pulled over for a traffic violation. But Mr. Traveler claims he is not required to do so because he has not committed a crime. According to Arizona's Stop and Identify law, which is codified in Section 1324.12 of the Arizona Revised Statutes, quote, "It is unlawful for a person, after being advised that the person's refusal to answer is unlawful, to fail or refuse to state the person's true full name on request of a peace officer who has lawfully detained the person based on reasonable suspicion that the person has committed, is committing, or is about to commit a crime." The statute also clarifies that, quote, "a person detained under this section shall state the person's true full name, but shall not be compelled to answer any other inquiry of a peace officer." Therefore, an individual who was detained based on reasonable suspicion of criminal activity would be legally required to provide their name, but they would not be obligated to show a driver's license or any other identification. However, Section 28-3169 of the Arizona Revised Statutes mandates that, quote, "a licensee shall have a legible driver license in the licensee's immediate possession at all times when operating a motor vehicle, and that, quote, on demand of a justice of the peace, a police officer, or a field deputy or inspector of the department, a licensee shall display the license." As the Supreme Court explained in the 1996 case of Wren v. United States, quote, "As a general matter, the decision to stop an automobile is reasonable where the police have probable cause. To believe that a traffic violation has occurred when a driver has been detained based on probable cause of a traffic infraction, an officer may engage in, quote, ordinary inquiries incident to the traffic stop, which the Supreme Court identified in the 2015 case of Rodriguez versus the United States as, quote, checking the driver's license, determining whether there are outstanding warrants against the driver, and inspecting the automobile's registration and proof of insurance. The court maintained that these checks were reasonable because they, quote, serve the same objective as enforcement of the traffic code, ensuring that vehicles on the road are operated safely and responsibly. Based on this precedent, a court would almost certainly determine that Mr. Traveler was required to show his driver's license to the officer, as he was detained in a traffic stop based on probable cause that his vehicle was not properly registered. So, a crime is when you injure someone. No. A crime for the state of Arizona. You got to understand here, It sounds like you're working off of constitutional law, right? I'm working off of state law, and your job is to uphold what? The Constitution. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not here to ask you, dude. If that was the case, if I was here to, cause you any kind of grief or house you, I would just have taken you out of the car. See, now you're talking about civil lawsuits when you do that. Is that a passport? Yes, it is. And I'm thinking about giving to you. I'm not sure if I'm going to give to you, but just for the record, is your action on recording? Yes, sir. Perfect. What I will do as a courtesy to you, I give you I verify who I am. Perfect. Here's the proof that I've turned in my license plate. Okay, back to the DMV because I'm no longer contracted with them so I don't operate in the commercial capacity. Here's another paper I turned in my driver's license. Okay, I gave it back to the DMV. I don't use this vehicle for commercial purpose. That's why I have my plates. That says before non-commercial use on dot. When you get a license plate at the DMV, it's required that you get that, or you're under the assumption that you're operating the commercial capacity. If I was an Uber driver, I'm going to need that. You would need your registration because I'm transporting passengers and stuff like that. Mr. Traveler explains that he has turned in his license plate, registration and driver's license to the DMV, claiming that they are not required because he's not using his vehicle in a commercial capacity. Section 28-3151 of the Arizona Revised Statute states the quote, "A person shall not drive a motor vehicle on a highway without a valid driver license." Mr. Traveler claims this statute does not apply to him because he's not operating his vehicle for commercial purpose, likely relying on the definition of a motor vehicle located in Section 28-5201 of the Arizona Revised Statutes, which states that the term motor vehicle, quote, means any vehicle, machine, truck, tractor, trailer, or semi-trailer that is propelled or drawn by mechanical power and that is used on a public highway in the transportation of passengers or property in the furtherance of a commercial enterprise. However, it is critical to note that Section 28-5201 specifically states that the definitions included in the statute. This statute only applied to, quote, this chapter, referring to Chapter 14 of Title 28 of the Arizona Revised Statutes, which covers motor carrier safety and only includes Statutes 28-5201 through 28-5244. For this reason, the definition of a motor vehicle in Section 28-5201 would not apply to the driver's license statute, which is located in Chapter 8. Instead, the definition of motor vehicle included in Section 28-101 of the Arizona Revised Statutes, which simply defines the term as a, quote, self-propelled vehicle would apply because Section 28-101 specifies that its definitions apply to the entirety of Title 28 unless the context of a certain statute requires a different definition. For this reason, the correct interpretation of Section 28-3151 requires all drivers to maintain a valid license, regardless of whether they are driving for commercial or non-commercial purposes. Similarly, Section 28-2153 of the Arizona Revised Statute states that, quote, "A person shall not operate, move, or leave standing on a highway a motor vehicle unless the motor vehicle has been registered with the department for the current registration year." And Section 28-2532 states that, quote, "A person who is the owner or operator of a motor vehicle that is not registered or does not display license plates for the current registration year and who operates the vehicle on a highway is subject to a civil penalty of $300 given the unambiguous application of these statutes to Mr. Traveler." A court reviewing the situation would undoubtedly conclude that Mr. Traveler needed to have a valid driver's license, license plate, and registration in order to drive legally.
Unfortunately, state law says you do. Even if you're not.
What ARS statute was that?
I would have to go look it up. I don't know statute by heart.
Please give it to me.
Like I said, I'm not here to hassle you.
No, I understand.
I'm not here to hassle you. I'm just letting you know.
I will ask you to show me those laws if you telling me
this
that
one.
That's the law.
Yes, it's called Operator Failure 1595 Bravo. Operator failure to provide ID.
Operator.
Yes.
That's what. That's the transportation.
You're operating
code.
this vehicle.
I am not operating this vehicle.
What are you doing in it?
I am traveling in this vehicle. If you look up the Arizona revised statutes, operator says it's a person that operates a motor vehicle on the highway for commercial purposes.
Okay.
So an operator, like a bus operator, anything to do with traffic is commercial.
Mr. Traveler claims that the driver's license statute does not apply to him because he is, quote, traveling in his vehicle instead of operating it commercially. As we discussed earlier in this episode, Arizona's Transportation Code requires all drivers, including non-commercial operators, to obtain a license before driving. While the Supreme Court held in the 1958 case of Kent v. Dulles that, quote, the right to travel is a part of the liberty of which the citizen cannot be deprived without due process of law under the Fifth Amendment, a state's right to regulate the use of motor vehicles. Vehicles within its borders has long been recognized as part of its so-called police power. As the Supreme Court determined in the 1915 case of Hendrick v. Maryland, quote, a state may rightfully prescribe uniform regulations necessary for public safety and order in respect to the operation upon its highways of all motor vehicles, those moving in interstate commerce as well as others. And to this end, it may require the registration of such vehicles and the licensing of their drivers. This is but an exercise of the police power uniformly recognized as belonging to the states and essential to the preservation of the health, safety, and comfort of their citizens. In fact, courts that have reviewed arguments that licensing requirements interfere with an individual's right to travel have repeatedly rejected them. For instance, the Supreme Court of North Dakota held in the 1996 case of Bismarck v. Stewart that, quote, no court has ever held that it is an impermissible infringement upon a citizen's constitutional right to travel for the legislature to decree that every person who operates a motor vehicle on public roads must have a valid operator's license because, quote, the legislature has the constitutional police power to ensure safe drivers and safe roads. Similarly, the U.S. District Court for Colorado determined in the 2012 case of Harvey v. Weld County District Attorney that, quote, it is a valid exercise of the state's police power to require all persons who operate motor vehicles on state highways to possess a valid driver's license. Because, quote, the right to travel, like the right to free exercise of religion, is fundamental but not absolute. Lute and, quote, requiring a driver's license is a reasonable and necessary regulation which does not offend due process. Because this legal principle is essentially undisputed, a court would almost certainly hold that Mr. Traveler was required to have a driver's license in order to drive legally, and that this requirement in no way unconstitutionally infringed on his right to travel.
Well, I'm not a traffic guru, and I'm not here to hassle you.
But I've done my research. That's what I'm saying.
I am going to tell you that you're probably going to get pulled over multiple times, and you probably already do.
This is my first time, and it's been when did I turn that in?
10/28.
Highway Patrol in California got behind me, nothing. So you're the first, man, so congratulations.
Okay. Well, I would have to read what operator says. I'm going to take your word for it.
Oh.
Because we have calls to get to, and
okay.
we're quite busy.
Okay.
I'm not here to, hassle you and write you tickets and take you out of the car. Just letting you know that from what I operate by, this is not valid. Alrighty?
Yeah, so your job is to operate traffic. If somebody's speeding and stuff like that.
Or no registration.
Expired tags.
Expired tag. Or no tags.
Oh, see, but I don't have a state plate.
Yes, you don't.
So that's therefore not contracted, so it's not required.
Okay.
That's why I gave it back. But that's why I got rid of it.
Well, this is kind of the same thing as you getting a Sharpie.
There's no kind of.
You getting a Sharpie.
Is it the same thing
you
or
getting
is
a
it not?
Sharpie. I'm just letting you know, hey, you get another officer that is kind of more of a stickler about traffic, that they could possibly write you tickets and, pull you out of the car for providing me this.
I used to be a truck driver, so I know the commercial flow pretty good.
Okay.
So
and
I used to have
I'm sure
if
you had a commercial driver's license, you probably know more about traffic than I do. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I'm the police officer, so I know blah blah blah.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm here to do.
Right.
All right, brother. Well, safe travels.
Okay.
Just letting you know, you can
understand.
possibly be pulled over again. All righty.
I understand your curiosity, man. Hey, you're a citizen, guy.
Hey.
You uphold the Constitution today, man. I appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good one.
All right.
After discussing the situation with Mr. Traveler and attempting to warn him that he could receive a ticket in the future if he continued to drive without a valid driver's license, license plate, and registration, the officer allowed Mr. Traveler to leave without issuing any citations or official warnings. Overall, the Phoenix officer gets an A- for maintaining a professional and respectful demeanor throughout the encounter, demonstrating a tremendous amount of humility in his position as a police officer and not unnecessarily escalating the encounter to a physical confrontation or an arrest. That being said, by letting Mr. Traveler go without even issuing a citation, the officer allowed him to continue in his mistaken beliefs about the law and exposed every other citizen on the road to the potential dangers posed by an unlicensed and likely uninsured driver. In general, state laws regulating the use of motor vehicles exist to ensure the safety of everyone on the road, and by allowing Mr. Traveler to continue to drive on those roads without a license or registration, the officer put other citizens at risk of injury and financial loss. It is a safe assumption that Mr. Traveler does not have auto insurance, as any legitimate insurance provider would require that an individual have a license and registration to purchase a policy. And uninsured drivers, particularly those who do not have the independent financial means to cover the costs of any accidents they cause, can cause significant financial loss to drivers who they're involved in a collision with, especially in a state like Arizona that does not require drivers to carry uninsured motorist coverage. While I admire the officer in this episode for his desire to prioritize serious crime over a traffic violation, I believe that failing to take any action to attempt to correct Mr. Traveler's illegal behaviors was an abdication of his duty to protect everyone else on the road. Mr. Traveler gets AC- because although he remained polite and respectful throughout the interaction, he violated several traffic laws, demonstrated a complete lack of understanding of Arizona traffic laws, and perpetuated blatant misrepresentations of both federal and state law and the Constitution. Although he never explicitly uses the term, Mr. Traveler appears to hold some sovereign citizen views, and I would encourage Mr. Traveler to do further research on the right to travel and driver's license requirements using reputable legal sources. As we have discussed on previous episodes of ATA, the sovereign citizen ideology is largely based on misinformation, cherry-picking legal concepts, and referencing antiquated case law, and holds no significant merit within a modern courtroom, especially regarding the distinction between driving. Thank you very much for watching the video. Subscribe our channel for next video.